Hello, my name is Aubrey Brooks. This is for our final portfolio for humanities. This is my um, elaboration on my humanities engagement number 5, which was about Silence of the Lambs. Some stuff that I should clarify and or elaborate on. Okay, so I talked about the adaptation of the book to this of the movie Silence of the Lambs to or of the book Silence of the Lambs to the movie Silence of the Lambs, and some things that the screen adapter did was a lot of the time the movie has a lot of times that it directly quotes the book for the actors' lines. So like in very pivotal moments, I know that fans of the book remember moments where a character said this or a character said that, and so he tried to include that in the movie so that like fans of the book could appreciate the movie because it like directly quotes the book. So a lot of the times Hannibal says something, it's straight out of the book. For example, when he is planning his escape from the prison, spoilers, sorry, when he's planning his escape from the prison, he says, "Ready when you are, Mr. O'Malley," or whoever the officer is, and he says that in the book as well. So the film is shot, the way the film is shot matches up with Starling, who's the main character, with her inner dialogue. So the way that she's thinking, like that she's processing everything, the film is kind of like the way that the camera moves and that the way that they capture it is kind of following her line of thought through the book, because obviously you can't read her mind during a movie. You can't have like what she's thinking in her head in a movie, so you have to somehow make the camera do that. And so he mentioned that he wanted to incorporate that into that. He wanted to incorporate her thoughts into the movie in some way. So the backstory of the book, like her backstory, like Starling's backstory, is actually a little bit different in the book than it is in the movie. In the book, Starling's dad was a security guard, and the reason he got killed was because he didn't pump his shotgun correctly when he encountered a criminal, so the criminal shot him, and that's how he died. In the movie, however, it makes her dad seem as though he was like a super great detective, like a really important a police officer who died in the line of fire when some place got robbed. So the book is a little bit, her dad is a little bit like, kind of almost like a joke in a way, not like she wanted to not live up to his standards, but to be better than him. And in the movie, she wants to meet his standards and live up to them. So that was a little bit of a difference. So she's talking to Hannibal in this scene, and the main thing of why it's called Silence of the Lambs, how we get our title, is that she remembers when her dad got killed. Her mother, in the movie, doesn't really talk about it, but in the book, her mother actually just couldn't afford to raise her, so she goes to move with a rancher and his wife, and that does happen, and she hears screaming. She's woken in the night because she hears screaming, and it happens to be the lambs who are getting slaughtered, and they're just sitting there screaming. In the movie, she takes a lamb and she runs, and she mentions that the lamb was very heavy, that she couldn't have gotten far, so they caught up to her really fast, and they took the lamb back, and they slaughtered it anyway, and they sent her to live in an orphanage. In the book, however, she sees the lambs being slaughtered, hears them screaming, but instead of taking a lamb, she takes a blind horse, and to like save it from glue or whatever. But she takes a blind horse, and they make it pretty far, and eventually the rancher's still mad, so he sends her to an orphanage, but she also takes the horse with her to the orphanage, and the horse like lets the orphans ride him and all of that. So I feel like the book had that in it, but he adapted the movie differently because in the movie it proves why she wants to catch this serial killer who's killing all these girls, because she can hear the screaming of the lambs in her she can hear them screaming, and it's just like more important. It's more important and to the moral of the story, and kind of creates this like background trauma that she needs to fulfill by solving this case, this background trauma that she tried to save a lamb, but she couldn't, and it ended up getting slaughtered anyway. So that in that aspect, she now has to save this woman from getting killed by Bill. She has to save this woman from getting killed, and that's like saving her lamb, and that's what will silence them, basically. So that he adapted that to the movie so that it would fit that characteristic. In the movie, her motivations are different. So she was abandoned at a young age, and wants to live up to her dad's expectations in the movie. But in the book, she is very successful, and she's just like really good at everything she does. And so in the movie, we kind of have like a background story of she's trying to overcome her past, and in the book, she is just really, really great at everything she does. So there's a little bit of a difference there. In the movie, at the very, very end, she graduates. So like she solves the case, she kills the serial killer, and then she gets to graduate. But in the book, she just gets to redo her exams. So the exams that she missed while killing this killer. So I feel like in the movie he adapted that to be her graduating, is because it's this big pivotal moment, and you have like a sense of closure at the end. So she did all this. She was training at the beginning. It shows her at the very first scene, it shows her training, and at the end it shows her graduating. So it has this progression of the character, this character progression that we don't see in the book, and it allows you to have a sense of closure. And then Clarice in the movie figures many things out for herself, and so that kind of goes along with my point in my other video of her being in a man's world, and everyone looking down on her, thinking that she can't do it because she's a woman, because she's small, and all of that. But in the book, Hannibal Lecter actually tells her stuff. So in the movie, Hannibal Lecter gives her a name, which is an anagram, that leads her to the storage unit that has the head in it that happens to be one of Hannibal's old people who was a lover to Bill. So like it slowly, she like figures it out for herself. Like Hannibal gives her a clue, but it's not really a clue because everyone else gets led on this wild goose hunt, but she figures it out. But in the book, her oversight actually figures it out and sends her to the storage unit where she finds the head. And so another point about that is in the movie, she figures out through being in Bill's house, the first victim's house, seeing that she was a seamstress and that she would sew. He saw that the same alterations that were happening to the dress was the same thing that he had cut out of one of his victims. So she figured out that why he was killing in that moment. She figured it out herself. But in the book, Hannibal actually tells her that he wants, I'm not going to say it out loud because it's kind of vulgar, but that Hannibal literally tells her that Bill is killing these girls to make a skin suit of his own. So something that made the film stand out, and it won all 5 of the big 5 of the Oscars, so Best Picture, Best Actress, Best Actor. The reason that it won that and that it stood out was because the male figures often look directly into the camera, giving the impression or feeling that makes you uncomfortable. So it's coming straight from Clarice's mind. So that's another way that he interpreted everything that was going on in Clarice's mind in the book into the movie, is that the male gaze literally, like if you go to any scene with Hannibal, he has a gaze straight into the camera, and it's like he's talking straight into your soul, which is what he's doing to Clarice. He's trying to pick you apart. And so something that set it apart is you are getting everything from Clarice's perspective. So when Hannibal's looking into the camera talking to Clarice, he's really talking to you. The actors also obviously all really worked very well together. That chemistry is very much there, and they obviously did a really good job because they won Best Actor and Best Actress for that movie. It also, something that sets this movie apart is that it deals with real life. Like everything in it is stuff that happens every single day. It's really, really plain. It's really out there. the things that happen in the jail are things that actually happen in jail. Like, it's that gross. Like, you see all these movies of them going in jail and everyone's in really pretty jumper suits and everyone's super nice and all that, but no, jail is really bad. That's why it's jail. And so I think this movie portrays real life scenarios realistically, and that's part of the reason that it's set apart. He also, the film adapter also mentioned that he goes from the point of view of Clarice. So you're following her point of view, which means that you are almost Clarice. You are able to allow yourself to escape into Clarice, which in the textbook mentions that if you were that a good movie allows you to escape and feel like you're in it. And this movie certainly does that because everything's from the perspective of Clarice. You're right there with her every single time. Every single shot is mostly of Clarice. And so you are Clarice while watching this movie. I mentioned that it was a classic, and the textbook mentions 3 ways that movies are classics, or that they're really, really good. And so perfectionism, so everything, which means everything that flows together. This movie never leaves you feeling confused, and you only have to watch it to understand really what's going on. It cuts from Clarice solving the murder to Bill killing more people, or kidnapping girls, and so you really never are like, what is happening? It really follows the events very well and was made very well in that you follow Clarice, and then you might have a cut from Bill kidnapping a girl, but then you go right back to Clarice, and it doesn't skip anything. Insight is also another one of the categories from the textbook, and so basically the insight is like what I mentioned before. It gives you all the information you need. You never have to question what's happening, and if you are questioning what's happening, that's the point, is that you're trying to figure out this case along with Clarice. And inexhaustibility, this movie is really timeless because it affects you. Like, you see real life things that happen. Nothing's really hidden. It shows everything. Like, it shows the body that they pull out of the river that's a victim of Bill's. It shows that. Like, it shows her back where he's cut skin from her back, and it shows him making skin suit, and it's really blunt, basically. It really affects you, and it's almost cringy to watch, but it keeps you on the edge of your seat. Like, it's so terrible to watch, but you can't look away because it really does affect you. And people do, obviously, either the people, cannibals are a real thing. So Hannibal is such a character, is a perfect example of this. He talks about eating people's liver, but you still root for him somehow, which doesn't make any sense. But this movie is certainly timeless and inexhaustible because it focuses on real life events, and it just affects you because it's so terrible, but it has a happy ending because it has happened. It's so terrible because it's true and it does happen, and it's just vulgar and blunt, and everything's there. Like, people actually solve cases like this. So I feel like that's why it's inexhaustible and timeless and a classic. So this was my edition. That's actually longer than my original video, so that's nice. But thanks for watching.